Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In this video, the pituitary hormone and their characteristics are discussed. The pituitary gland is a gland that has got anterior portion and a posterior portion that are termed as anterior and posterior lobe of the pituitary gland. This gland is also termed as hypophysis. So this is a very small organ that is that has the diameter of about 1 centimeter, and its weight is about 0.5 to 1 gram only. It is located within the sella turcica, that is the bony cavity within the brain base, and its connection is with the hypothalamus by hypophyseal stalk. There are three parts: anterior or adenohypophysis, then the posterior lobe or neurohypophysis, and the acellular avascular intermediate zone is pars intermedia. So this anterior lobe or adenohypophysis it arrives from Rathke's pouch, the embryonic invagination of the pharyngeal epithelium, while the posterior lobe of this pituitary or neurohypophysis arises from the neural tissue outgrowth from the hypothalamus. So the anterior one is epithelioid nature of the cell, and the posterior one has got the glial type of the cell. So this diagram is showing the anatomical structure of the pituitary gland, also called the hypophysis, and its connection to the hypothalamus via the pituitary or hypophyseal stalk. It also highlights the key anatomical landmarks around the gland. So this hypothalamus is located above the pituitary gland, and it controls the pituitary through the hormonal signals to the anterior pituitary gland and neural signals to the posterior pituitary gland through the hypophyseal stalk. The infundibulum or hypophyseal stalk is the thin connection between the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, and it carries axon and blood vessel that enable the communication between the two structures. The anterior pituitary or adenohypophysis is the large frontal lobe that is originating from the pharyngeal or epithelial tissue, and it secretes six major peptide hormones that regulate growth, metabolism, reproduction, and lactation. The posterior pituitary is rare and a small lobe that is originating from the neural tissue. It stores and releases two hormones, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, which are produced in the hypothalamus. The pars intermedia is the thin central zone in between these two structures, the anterior and posterior lobe. This is thin structure that is minimally developed in human, and it is more functional in animal. In animal, it functions as secreting melanocyte stimulating hormone. Optic chiasm is located above the pituitary gland, where optic nerve 2 or cranial nerve 2 crosses clinically, uh, and this is clinically relevant also because pituitary tumor can compress this optic chiasm and cause visual impairment. The mammillary body, that is part of the hypothalamus, involved in mammary and limbic system uh, function, and it is also closely associated. So to summarize, the anterior pituitary has got a glandular origin and it has got endocrine function, while posterior pituitary has got a neural origin and it has got neurosecretory function. These are connected to the hypothalamus via the hypophyseal stalk, and form the hypothalamic pituitary axis, a central regulatory system in the endocrinology. Six hormones from the anterior pituitary and two hormones from the posterior pituitary are secreted. All of the hormones are peptide in nature. The growth hormone stimulates whole body growth, and this process occurs by protein formation, cell multiplication, and cell differentiation, while the adrenocorticotropin is the hormone that is responsible for regulation of the adrenal cortex and secretion of glucocorticoids. It influences metabolism and metabolism of the glucose, protein, and fats. The thyrotropin or thyroid stimulating hormone, it stimulates the thyroid gland to produce T3 and T4 and controls the rate of intracellular chemical reactions, that determines the basic metabolic rate. The prolactin is another hormone from the anterior pituitary, and this is responsible for development of mammary gland and production of the milk. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone are gonadotropic hormone. They control growth, hormonal and reproductive activities of ovaries and testes. Now the two hormones that are secreted from the posterior pituitary are ADH or antidiuretic hormone, that is also termed as vasopressin. It controls the rate of water excretion into the urine. And another hormone is oxytocin, that is responsible for expression of milk from gland of breast to the nipples and delivery of the baby at the end of gestation. This illustration is uh, showing that the anterior pituitary gland, over here, this anterior pituitary gland, it is releasing six key peptide hormones, each targeting a specific gland and tissue. The thyrotropin or thyroid stimulating hormone, it targets thyroid gland, and its function is to stimulate the secretion of thyroid hormone, both the T3 and T4, that regulate the metabolism in most of the tissues. Then the growth hormone. The growth hormone is responsible for the growth promotion, increase blood glucose levels, and indirectly stimulate insulin secretion from the pancreas. It targets all the body tissues generally. So these dashed lines indicate that the growth hormone influence on insulin secretion and adrenal activity. Then corticotropin, or the uh, adrenocorticotropic hormone. This hormone targets the adrenal cortex. This adrenocorticotropic hormone targets the adrenal cortex, and it stimulates the secretion of glucocorticoids like cortisol, which increase blood glucose, and also help responding to stress. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, they target ovaries in female and testes in male, and they responsible for regulation of reproductive process. Follicle stimulating hormone is responsible for follicle development, estrogen secretion, while luteinizing hormone is responsible for ovulation and progesterone secretion. The prolactin targets the mammary gland, and it promotes milk production and breast development. Uh, Hence, the anterior pituitary hormone coordinate endocrine signaling to regulate metabolism, growth, reproduction, lactation, and response to stress. So this small organ of about 1 centimeter dia is made up of many types of these cells. One is somatotrop that secretes growth hormone. The corticotrop secretes ACTH or adrenocorticotropic hormone. Thyrotrops secretes thyroid stimulating hormone, and gonadotrops release luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, while prolactin secreting cells are secreted by the they secrete the prolactin. Then most of these cells are somatotrophs. About 30 to 40% of the cell population is composed of somatotroph, while the 20% are corticotroph. Remaining thyrotroph, gonadotroph, and prolactins secreting cells, they are about 3 to 5% each. The somatotrophs are also termed as acidophils because they stain strongly with acid dye, and hence they are called acidophils. So pituitary glands that secrete large amount of growth hormone are often termed as acidophilic tumors. This histologic picture is visualizing the high or richly cellular diversity within the anterior pituitary gland, where different cells synthesize and secrete a specific peptide hormone into surrounding sinusoid for systemic delivery. Uh, Here this is showing various histologic structure of the anterior pituitary. One, the alpha cell, they typically refer to somatotrophs and produce growth hormone. The gamma cell possibly are regulatory or rare subtype, not a major hormone source. The adrenocorticotropic, the corticotrophs, they release ACTH or adrenocorticotropic hormone or somatostatin. It comes from delta cell, while the epsilon cells are they possibly secrete lectotropes. Uh, these are lectotropes. They secrete prolactin or growth hormone. Then these beta cell may refer to thyrotropes secrete TSH. The posterior pituitary hormones are not made in the posterior pituitary itself. They are synthesized in the magnocellular neuron in the supraoptic nucleus, mainly produce ADH, while the paraventricular nucleus mainly produce oxytocin. Both are located in the hypothalamus. So the hormones are pegged into the secretory vesicles in the neuron cell bodies, and they travel down the axon via exoplasmic transport through the pituitary stalk or infundibulum. They are stored in axon terminal located in the posterior pituitary or neurohypophysis. When stimulated, these neurons release the hormone into the bloodstream from their terminals. The somatotropes secrete growth hormone or somatotropin, that is a single chain of 191 amino acid. They stimulate body growth, stimulate secretion of insulin-like growth factor 1, and also stimulate lipolysis, while inhibit action of insulin on carbohydrate and lipid metabolism. The corticotropes release adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH or corticotropin. These are also single chain of 39 amino acid, and they stimulate production of glucocorticoid and androgens by the adrenal cortex and maintain size of zona fasciculata and zona reticularis of cortex. The thyrotropes or they secrete thyroid stimulating hormone or TSH, that is also named as thyrotropin, and these are biochemically glycoproteins of subunit, alpha subunit, that contain 89 amino acid, while beta subunit that contain 112 amino acid. They stimulate production of thyroid hormone by thyroid follicular cell and maintain size of follicular cell. The gonadotropes are follicle stimulating hormone FSH and luteinizing hormone LH. The FSH is glycoprotein of two subunits, alpha 1 that is 89 amino acid chain and beta subunit that contains 112 amino acid. The luteinizing hormone is also a glycoprotein of two subunits, the alpha unit containing 89 amino acid while the beta unit containing 115 amino acid. They cause ovulation and formation or corpus luteum, this luteinizing hormone, in the ovary and stimulate production of estrogen and progesterone by the ovary and also stimulate testosterone production by the testes in male. The follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the development of ovarian follicle and in female, and in male it regulates the spermatogenesis. So the growth hormone and prolactin are single chain polypeptide that directly act on target tissue. TSH, FSH, and LH are glycoprotein with common alpha subunit and distinct beta unit, providing hormone specificity. ACTH is a short peptide that triggers adrenal hormone secretion. So understanding of this breakdown is essential for the diagnosis of and treating endocrine disorders such as acromegaly, in which there is excess growth hormone secretion, Cushing syndrome, in which there is excess adrenocorticotropic hormone, hypogonadism or infertility, in which there is FSH or LH imbalance is present, hypothyroidism, in which the TSH deficiency is there, or galactorrhea, where the excessive prolactin is secreted. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any query, please write in the comment box.